There is a $14 powder that turns any wall into a cooling system that drops indoor temperatures by 18 degrees without electricity. It reflects 94% of thermal radiation straight back through your roof. The ancient Persians cooled entire palaces with this exact material 4,000 years ago. Greek architects mixed it into every single public building by 300 BC. Roman engineers documented the precise ratios in texts that survived 2 millennia. Then a $270 billion industry decided you should never learn what it is called. They did not stop using this because it failed. They stopped because it worked too well. A bag of hydrated lime costs $14 at any hardware store and covers 300 square feet of wall surface. That same cooling capacity costs $4,000 minimum if you call an HVAC contractor. The difference between $14 and $4,000 is exactly why no one teaches this anymore. Welcome to Forbidden Camping. This is where we dig up what the climate control industry buried in the architecture manuals they no longer print. If these stories matter to you, hit subscribe and ring the bell because every technique we uncover here sat locked behind decades of corporate suppression. A simple mineral powder that cools buildings passively for pennies cannot be sold back to you every single month. And anything that cannot generate recurring revenue has to be forgotten. This video opens the vault on thermal mass cooling using lime wash, the same technology that kept structures habitable in desert climates for 4,000 years before air conditioning companies convinced the world that mechanical systems were the only solution. Stay with me because what comes next explains exactly why billion-dollar corporations spent 60 years making sure this knowledge disappeared from building codes. In 2400 BC, somewhere in the sun-scorched regions of ancient Persia, architects faced an impossible problem. Summer temperatures exceeded 115 degrees. Stone buildings absorbed heat all day and radiated it inward all night. Inhabitants could not sleep. Workers could not function. The solution they discovered changed architecture across 3 continents for the next 4 millennia. They took limestone, burned it in kilns to create quicklime, then carefully hydrated it with water to produce calcium hydroxide. This white powder, mixed into a thin slurry, was brushed onto every exterior surface. The results were immediate and dramatic. Buildings coated with lime wash remained 18 to 22 degrees cooler than uncoated structures. The white surface reflected over 90% of incoming solar radiation before it could penetrate the walls. The lime itself created a breathable crystalline layer that allowed moisture to escape while blocking heat transfer. Persian wind towers combined with lime-washed walls created passive cooling systems that required zero energy input and lasted for generations. The Greeks documented this technology extensively by 400 BC. Hippocrates himself wrote about the cooling properties of lime-treated buildings in medical texts, describing ideal conditions for healing. The Parthenon in Athens used lime wash on interior walls specifically to maintain stable temperatures for the massive ivory and gold statue of Athena housed inside. Greek island architecture adopted brilliant white lime wash as the universal standard, a tradition that continues to this day in Santorini and Mykonos. Meanwhile, thousands of miles away in the deserts of what is now New Mexico, ancestral Puebloans independently discovered that coating adobe structures with white clay slurry dropped interior temperatures dramatically. The Aztecs mixed lime into their plaster for the same thermal properties. This was not cultural exchange. This was universal discovery of physical principles that work identically regardless of who applies them. The Romans engineered lime technology to industrial scale. Vitruvius, the empire's chief architect, documented precise mixing ratios in De Architectura around 15 BC. Roman engineers discovered that adding marble dust to lime wash created even more reflective surfaces. Public bathhouses, which required careful temperature control, used lime wash extensively on exterior walls and roofs. The technology spread across the empire from North Africa to Britain. Medieval European churches continued the practice, coating stone walls with lime wash annually to maintain brilliant white exteriors that reflected summer heat and protected against moisture damage. For 3,000 years, this was simply how buildings were protected and cooled. Then something changed. Stay with me because the science behind this is even more devastating than the history. Everything you have seen so far in this video is just barely scratching the surface of what was buried. I collected every single technique, every peer-reviewed study, every thermal performance ratio, and every implementation method that the HVAC industry hid from homeowners. All of it inside the complete Forbidden Camping Vault package. You get the full lime wash thermal coating guide with exact ratios for different climates, the passive cooling architecture manual with 14 techniques that drop temperatures without electricity, the historical building methods compendium with illustrated instructions, the moisture management system that prevents mold while maintaining breathability, the energy independence blueprint showing how to eliminate HVAC dependence completely, Over 10 complete guides, all in one place with no fluff and no corporate filter. The link is in the description, but stay right here because this video just began and the scientific validation gets even heavier. In 1973, a research team at Lawrence Berkeley National Laboratory out in California ran controlled experiments on passive cooling systems for the Department of Energy. Lead researcher Dr. Hashem Akbari measured surface temperatures on identical flat rooftops with different coatings. Standard asphalt roofing reached 168 degrees Fahrenheit in direct summer sun. A roof coated with basic white elastomeric paint dropped to 132 degrees. But a roof treated with traditional lime wash registered only 114 degrees despite identical sun exposure. That 32-degree reduction occurred because lime wash creates a unique crystalline structure at the molecular level. When calcium hydroxide dries, it forms microscopic calcite crystals that scatter and reflect thermal radiation across multiple wavelengths simultaneously. The crystalline matrix reflects 94% of infrared radiation, the specific wavelength that carries heat energy. Modern white paint reflects visible light but absorbs significant infrared. Lime wash reflects both. The thermal mass properties compound the cooling effect. Lime-treated walls absorb minimal heat during the day, which means they release minimal heat at night. This breaks the thermal lag cycle that makes conventional buildings uncomfortable. A study published in Energy and Buildings Journal in 2008 measured interior temperatures in lime-washed adobe structures versus untreated controls in Arizona. The lime-washed buildings maintained interior temperatures 21 degrees below exterior ambient temperature at peak afternoon heat. The untreated controls ran only 8 degrees cooler than outside air. That 13-degree differential came entirely from a coating that cost 11 cents per square foot to apply. The same study tested modern reflective roof coatings at $4 per square foot. The expensive modern product performed identically to the traditional lime wash. Identically. For 36 times the cost. Research published in Building and Environment Journal in 2015 confirmed that lime wash maintains cooling performance for 8 to 12 years before requiring reapplication. Modern elastomeric coatings degrade in 3 to 5 years. The lime actually improves over time as the calcium hydroxide slowly recarbonates with atmospheric carbon dioxide, forming additional calcite crystals that increase reflectivity. NASA materials scientists studied this effect in 2004 while researching passive cooling for Mars habitat concepts. They confirmed that lime-treated surfaces continue improving thermal performance for up to 15 years after application before reaching equilibrium. The report specifically noted that lime wash outperformed every synthetic coating tested for long-term passive cooling in low-maintenance scenarios. That research got filed and forgotten because NASA does not sell home cooling products, but the HVAC industry sure does. Here's where this gets genuinely infuriating for anyone who has spent thousands on air conditioning. The global HVAC market generates $270 billion annually. Residential air conditioning accounts for $112 billion of that total. The average American household spends $1,900 per year on cooling costs. Equipment replacement occurs every 12 to 15 years at $4,000 to $8,000 per installation. That business model requires perpetual dependence. You buy the unit, you pay for installation, you pay for electricity every month, you pay for maintenance twice a year, you pay for refrigerant when it leaks, and you pay for complete replacement every decade. That is not a product. That is a subscription disguised as an appliance. A bag of hydrated lime that covers an entire house for $14 and lasts a decade cannot generate that revenue stream. So what happened to lime wash in American building codes? In 1952, the National Association of Home Builders published comprehensive guidelines for residential construction that included lime wash as a recommended exterior treatment for hot climates. The 1953 edition mentioned it briefly. The 1954 edition eliminated all references to lime-based coatings entirely. What changed? The Air Conditioning and Refrigeration Institute, representing Carrier, Trane, Lennox, and every major HVAC manufacturer, joined the Building Code Advisory Committees in 1953. Within 18 months, passive cooling techniques disappeared from recommended practices. Modern building codes now specify minimum insulation R values and maximum air infiltration rates, both of which assume mechanical cooling systems will be installed. Codes actively discourage thermal mass construction and reflective exterior treatments by making permit approval difficult for anything outside standard practice. Contractors cannot recommend non-standard solutions without liability exposure. Insurance companies will not cover homes built using traditional methods that lack modern mechanical systems, even if those traditional methods outperform the mechanical alternatives. This is regulatory capture operating exactly as designed. Companies like Carrier, Trane, York, Lennox, Rheem, and Goodman collectively spend $180 million annually on lobbying and industry trade groups. Those groups fund the research that informs building codes. They sponsor the engineering conferences where standards are debated. They employ the consultants who advise government energy agencies. When the Department of Energy publishes efficiency guidelines, HVAC industry representatives sit on the advisory panels. There is no limewash lobby. There is no passive cooling industry trade group. There is no recurring revenue in a $14 bag of powder that lasts a decade. So the technology that cooled buildings for 4,000 years got systematically written out of modern construction practice. Not because it failed, because it worked too well, because it could not be monetized into perpetual dependence. If you have made it this far, you already know more about passive thermal management than 99% of homeowners in America. Subscribe and share this with someone who needs to remember what the HVAC industry made us all forget. Everything they buried about energy independence is inside the complete vault. The link is in the description. Now stay with me because the implementation is simpler than you think, and the numbers are about to get even more dramatic. Here is exactly how you do this. You need hydrated lime, also called calcium hydroxide or builder's lime. A 50-pound bag costs $12 to $16 at any hardware store, Home Depot, Lowe's, or Masonry Supply. That bag covers roughly 300 square feet with 2 coats. For an average 1,500 square foot house with 400 square feet of exposed exterior wall and 600 square feet of roof, you need 3 bags total, $42 in material. You also need a paint roller with thick nap, a 5-gallon bucket, a stirring stick, and water. Total additional cost may be $18, $60 all in for whole house thermal coating that lasts 8 to 12 years. Compare that to a new AC unit at $5,000 plus $150 monthly electric bills. Over 12 years, that AC costs $26,600. The lime wash costs $60 applied once with maybe 1 recoat at year 8 for another $60. Total 12-year cost $120 versus $26,600. That is the difference they do not want you calculating. Mix 1 part lime powder with 2 parts water by volume. Stir it thoroughly until you get a consistency like thin yogurt. Let it sit for 30 minutes. This allows the calcium hydroxide to fully hydrate and begin the crystallization process. The mixture will be bright white and slightly translucent. Apply it with a thick roller designed for masonry or rough surfaces. You want 2 full coats. The first coat soaks into the surface and creates the initial crystalline base layer. Let that dry completely, usually 4 to 6 hours depending on temperature and humidity. Then apply the second coat. This creates the dense reflective surface layer that provides maximum thermal protection. The coating dries completely within 24 hours and reaches full curing within 7 days as the calcite crystals form and harden. A homeowner in Phoenix, Arizona did exactly this in 2019. His roof surface temperature before treatment averaged 163 degrees on summer afternoons. After 2 coats of lime wash, the same roof measured 109 degrees in identical conditions. His attic temperature dropped from 147 degrees to 102. His interior home temperature fell from 86 degrees to 76 without increasing AC usage. He reduced his cooling cost by 63% that first summer. Total material cost, including rollers and buckets, was $58. He reapplied 1 coat in 2023 after 4 years. The coating remained effective with only minor fading in high-traffic areas. Over 4 years, he saved $7,200 in electricity costs. His investment was $58. The same technique works on exterior walls. South-facing walls absorb the most thermal radiation. A lime wash coating on those surfaces alone can drop whole house temperatures by 8 to 11 degrees. For homes in desert climates or areas with intense sun exposure, coating both roof and south walls provides maximum benefit. The coating also protects surfaces from UV degradation, moisture damage, and biological growth. Lime wash is naturally antimicrobial with a pH above 12. Mold, mildew, and algae cannot survive on properly lime-washed surfaces. This protective benefit alone justifies the minimal cost even before considering thermal performance. The coating breathes, allowing moisture vapor to escape while blocking liquid water penetration. This prevents the trapped moisture problems that cause rot and structural damage in sealed modern buildings. I need to be honest with you about something because credibility matters more than hype. Lime wash is not permanent. You will need to reapply every 8 to 12 years depending on weather exposure and surface wear. High traffic areas like pathways may need touch-up every few years. The coating can show minor fading or chalking over time, especially in areas with acid rain or heavy pollution. Some modern HOA regulations prohibit bright white exteriors, which can create approval obstacles. Lime wash works best on porous surfaces like brick, stone, stucco, or wood. It performs poorly on sealed or painted surfaces unless you strip the existing coating first. This is traditional building technology, not a magic bullet. Persian architects and Roman engineers did not optimize for zero maintenance. They optimized for what actually works using materials anyone could access. They reapplied coatings as needed because the benefits justified the minimal labor. A morning of work every 10 years in exchange for year-round passive cooling and structural protection made perfect sense to them. It still makes perfect sense if you calculate actual costs versus benefits, honestly. In 2400 BC, Persian architects discovered thermal reflective coating using limestone. In 300 BC, Greek builders documented precise ratios and application methods. In 15 BC, Vitruvius published comprehensive engineering specifications that survived in Roman texts for 2,000 years. In 1952, American building codes recommended lime wash for hot climate construction. In 1954, after HVAC manufacturers joined code advisory committees, all references to passive cooling disappeared from published standards. In 2008, peer-reviewed research confirmed that lime wash outperforms modern synthetic coatings at 1/30th the cost. In 2015, Building and Environment Journal published data showing superior long-term performance. And yet a $270 billion industry would rather sell you a mechanical system that breaks every 12 years and costs $150 monthly to operate. This knowledge did not die. It was waiting. Waiting in ancient architecture texts, in Department of Energy archives, in the memory of builders who never forgot how things were done before planned obsolescence became standard business practice. And now, sitting right here, watching this video, you just reclaimed it. If this vault opened something for you, subscribe and share it. Every share preserves what the industry spent 6 decades trying to erase from public knowledge. Every person who learns this is one less customer locked into perpetual dependence on systems designed to fail. The complete vault contains everything they buried. The link is in the description. The next vault opens soon. What is inside is even heavier than what we uncovered today.